All right, Jessica, you just passed the PMP exam. How good do you feel?
Amazing. Really good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you have like a little different journey. Like you had some before and afters, like you did it, two different ways. Like, why don't you talk to us about kind of your journey of how you got here and you passed the PMP exam, please?
Sure. Well, I actually took the PMP exam one other time last year, and I didn't pass. I was self-studying for several months, was ready to tackle it, thought I was prepared, went into it, and really I failed. That was a pretty low. It was, I kind of closed the book at that point and was like, what am I doing? Took a little break. And then, in 2021, the exam was changing. And so I was really nervous about that and how I had been studying prior. Was that going to help me or hinder going into 2021 with it changing? So with that, I got another book and I started studying again, learning more of the Agile methodologies. And I just really wasn't feeling comfortable or confident in taking the exam again. And I didn't want to feel that fail from previously. So I actually came across like one of your podcasts and started listening to it. And I was like, whoa, like that just totally makes sense. And I felt like the information was just really clear, concise, and I understood it like from the first time. So that's when I started like listening to more and really like dug into the program and called you, we talked, and I started and then within 3 weeks is when I was able to pass.
All right. So that's not bad from like, boom, we made a change. And then 3 weeks you passed. So we'll talk about what was different, but as you reflect back, like, not that anything was wrong, but what was missing as you like did the self-study and things? Like, what was the missing parts for you?
I felt like I just wasn't understanding. Like I was studying, I was reading, I was taking quizzes, but it just wasn't clicking. Like I felt like one of the big differences was trying to memorize information or terminology, things like that, when that's not important at all. Like you shouldn't have to memorize anything is what I feel like now. And I mean, the test isn't asking you true or false questions, like, or the definition of something. It's really like, do you understand it? So
All right. That makes total sense. I'm on board. And so day one, when you got in, like, what did it feel like? Like when you started, did things start making sense? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Like, what was it like when you started learning?
I was pretty excited. I had just really made a commitment to myself that I was going all in. With we paid for it. Myself, I didn't have an employer that was doing it. It came out of my money. And so I felt like, making that kind of a financial investment, I was 100% going to go all in. So that's what I did. And I just had to dive.
Just do it. Yeah. Go all in. Yeah. And so then like the learning, like obviously right off the bat, we're like, hey, we're not going to learn. We're not going to memorize. We're not going to learn. No, we're not going to memorize anything. We're just going to learn. What helped things come together? Was it just like the things were visual, that the explanations were, good and vibrant or something like that? Or that there's pictures? Like what helped things work for your brain?
I feel like the way that everything was explained, it just made sense. So there were some visual things, but for the most part, I guess for me, I just was learning it better by listening versus reading to myself. If that makes sense.
That's the way I am too. So I totally understand there. So that's cool. And then I know that you were a Salvador person, right? You're in Salvador's calls.
Mm-hmm.
What was the experience like with Salvador as the accountability coach?
He was great. super patient, listened to everything that we had to say or how we were feeling, very motivational and supportive. And he really explained things too, that just made sense. So if we, say we're going through some questions and, if we didn't get the answer right, then he would explain it in a way that you're like, oh, okay, got it.
Okay, that makes sense. And then like we did more, like a lot of those things, like we have to take a test at the end, right? A quiz at the end. We got to do situational questions. Was it helpful for you to learn a really detailed way to solve these questions and walk through them and like see me solve them, walk through it with you? Was that helpful for you as you prepared?
Definitely. That was something totally new to me in this program than what I was doing before. And so, yeah, going through the steps and crossing them out, maybe, okay, that definitely was how, like, when I was taking the test, I had to keep on pace and it made me go fast.
Right. And so you had 3 weeks is like wild for normal people. They're like, oh my goodness, how could you do it in 3 weeks? Like, did you feel like when you got close to the end, like I just personally, when I was getting ready to take the test, I was like, I think I'm ready. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm going to do this thing. I had to. Did you feel ready? Like, what was it? How did you know, like with that 3 weeks that you had to do it? Or
I was at a point where I was like, I needed to do it because I didn't think there was more I could do at that point. I felt like I had gone through the information and I knew it, and I didn't think there was any way I would know it any better. So that's kind of, when I signed up, I was like, I think I signed up maybe a day or two before. So I really only had one day where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? I wish I had more time. But then I would say, okay, I know way more now than I did the last time. So I've got to do better.
Yeah, that's true. And at the end of the day, why were you doing this? Like, what was the PMP? Why were you taking the PMP to get it?
I'm looking for a career change. So that's why I was going, I wanted to get the PMP because I wanted to go into a different career. And it came down to a point. I've invested so much time and money in it and myself that I had to do it. I wasn't gonna just quit.
Yeah, that's good, and I'm glad you didn't. And so now that you get through it, like, do you look at projects differently? Do you feel like you're better at how to prepare and how to move through kind of like professionally from going through the course for 3 weeks?
Definitely. I feel like I really understand the right way and how you'll be successful.
That's awesome. And so there are probably people out there like you. They probably maybe they failed last year. Maybe they just have never taken the test. They've probably been like self-studying. Like I know the people like that. And maybe they feel a little bit lost and they're just like, they just don't know what to do next. And so for those kind of people, what would you say like the right approach for them to be successful like you is? Like, what would you advise them to do?
I think the first thing is mentally being ready to tackle it and to go 100% in. Eliminate distractions as much as you can. I know some people have jobs and they're studying at night. So, however you can work it into your schedule where you're studying without distractions for X amount of time, whatever you can give each day. That's really important. And, I wish I would have found this sooner because I would have saved myself a lot of time.
I've heard that before. It's totally good. And so like I love your advice. And so there's also a good amount of Agile on the new exam, right? They're like 50+%, whatever. Did you know anything about Agile at any depth before you started?
Well, I had read another book and with the updated information a few times. I've read it a few times. So I did have a little bit. I don't think I really understood it though. And so no, not really.
Not really. Yeah, that's cool. And
Not
then
really.
like, I think that's the most
That
fun
was
for me.
I would say that was like the area when I would do other quizzes before I was in this one. I always got them wrong, and I was like, okay, I'm just not getting that either, you know.
And so what helped, like, I know we have very, very focused modules, spent a lot of time doing the Agile
Yeah.
modules to make it clean. Like, did it make more sense, like the Agile for you as you went through it? Because really you just had a little snippet on the book and now you get it now. Like, what about Agile started to make sense for you? Like, some people out there always ask me, like, how do I learn Agile? Like, if I don't know anything, if I'm not in this environment, like, how did it come together for you?
I mean, I went through the videos and I feel like it was just totally different than traditional, but it still made sense. Like there were still things, everything about it made sense in the way that it works. It's just different.
Yeah, just a different way to do it, but very, very logical in a sense. And
Yes,
you do it for a reason. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Well, I know that you did it for, you got the PMP, so you're making that transition. We wish you the best, and anything that we can do to help you, we're always here. Is there any last, kind of advice or guidance for those people that want to do? I know you told us like what you think, but like, what would be the last thing that you want to leave with people as they start to go and keep studying and pursue what you're doing? What's the last thing you want to tell them? Anything?
I would say don't wait any longer. It's just do it if you can. Go ahead, go through the program. I mean, I really, like I said, I was 100% in, and I did everything by the book, or the program really.
Yeah.
So just do it and engage, be focused, and you'll pass.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. I'm proud of you how you did. And anything you need, we're here to help you forever.
Thank you.
So we're good. Thank you, ma'am.